Thank you for being here at our Embodied Resilience workshop. Embodiment is essentially not being stuck in the head. How often do people get stuck in the head these days? Well, quite a lot. As a matter of fact, most people live in their heads thanks to modern technology, thanks to the demands of the modern lifestyle to think, and even sensory organs that we have. Most are located in the head, and so most people pay attention to those senses that are located in the head, such as eyesight, hearing, smell, maybe taste to some extent. Now, touch is already getting a little blurry. People are often out of touch and pay hardly any attention to the sixth sense that we all have, that we are hardwired for kinesthetic awareness of movement. Proprioceptors, the sensory organs of kinesthesia, are throughout the whole body. And we need to be able to develop experience of feeling what it's like to move the body in order to develop kinesthetic awareness. Why would we want that? Simply put, there is no life without movement. And if we don't pay attention to movement, which is kinesthetic awareness, we are not experiencing our lives fully. In fact, it would probably be fair to say that we experience them secondhand. What do I mean by that? Well, when we look at things happening outside of us, or when we listen to things happening outside of us, or when we're smelling things happening, hopefully outside of us, or maybe even tasting them, or even touching them, they basically are second-hand experiences. Often they are outside of our bodies, and we're observing the life happening beyond our organism. And that is the second-hand experience of life, as I call it. Now, what would be the first-hand experience of being alive? Well, that would be feeling the flow of life force. In Chinese, they call it qi. In Japanese, they call it ki. In Hindu, they call it prana. There are many other ways of explaining what energy is or how the life force can be experienced. And the most direct first-hand experience of feeling the flow of life force in the body is to feel movement of the body, how the body breathes, how the body digests food, and how the body experiences other physiological and physical actions. And those experiences are providing us the first-hand experience of being alive. If we want to experience our lives fully, that would be imperative to develop the first-hand experience of feeling the life force. Now, what else? We want to develop the sense of embodiment because that allows us to walk the good walk. A lot of people nowadays talk a good talk, and when we talk a good talk, it's, again, the second-hand experience, or maybe even just talking about the experience. What does it mean to transition from talking a good talk to walking a good walk? We have to engage our body in movement. That's what walk is. It doesn't always have to be a walk. It can be a variety of different movements, but we can't experience it if we are not embodied. So, how do we get embodied? Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore today. And there are certain principles of embodiment. There are also certain principles that facilitate resilience. And it so happens that many of those principles are the same for embodiment and for resilience. That's why I love this topic of embodied resilience, because it just makes sense. It just clicks. What are we going to explore today? Some of the principles, such as being grounded. What does it mean to be grounded? Well, we're going to explore the physical meaning of being grounded. What most people think of being grounded is that it gives us the connection to the ground, and hopefully we experience connection to Mother Earth. Well, let's unpack it a little bit. How do we experience connection with Mother Earth? If we are walking or standing or doing anything else active, most likely it's the experience of connection to the ground through the soles of our feet. Now we actually need to fine-tune that interface, connecting our body and Mother Earth or whatever we're walking on, and that gives us the sense of grounding. If we are not paying attention to how we connect with the ground that we walk on or stand on, it's really hard to get grounded. So no wonder most people are not grounded, because very few people pay very much attention to how they connect to the ground through the soles of their feet. Are soles of the feet the only parts of the body that we need to pay attention to? Of course not, but it's a really nice first step to take. So we're going to begin our exploration today with the principle of grounding. What other principles are we going to explore today? There are several others. For example, principle of orientation. Orientation is, as the name implies, about being oriented or not being disoriented. A lot of people nowadays live in a rather disoriented, discombobulated way. What does it mean to be disoriented? It simply means you don't really know where you're going and why. And if you orient yourself, you actually get the sense of purpose. You get the sense of doing something that has meaning, and when you act in alignment with your high priority values, you feel like you're acting on purpose. Well, who wouldn't want that? Another thing that we also want to explore is the principle of stabilization. Is it related to the principle of grounding? Yes. Is it the same? No. The principle of stabilization is very closely related to the principle of orientation. Both of those principles rely on awareness of the power line of the body, what we also refer to as the center line. And it's not just the line that divides the body in two halves, the right and left sides. There's a mid-sagittal plane. So if you bring your hands together in the prayer-like position and move them up and down, back and forth, they are moving in this mid-sagittal plane that divides the body in half. And we want to be aware of the center line or the central plane, because that's where most power that we have is located. What do I mean by that? It's like a power line of the body. Everything that you do on the center line is going to be more empowered than anything that you do off center line. For example, if you try to hammer a nail, it will be much more powerful if you do it on the center line as opposed to doing it like this or like that. If you drive a tight screw into a wall, you will have a lot more oomph or a lot more power on the center line. With just a centimeter or an inch off to the side, that's not happening. Doing this way, not working either. It doesn't matter if it is up here or down here, as long as it's on center line, there is power. It's almost like you're turning this screwdriver into a power tool or hammer or anything else. It can be a pen, it can be a computer mouse. As a matter of fact, how many people who use a computer mouse, especially a desktop with a computer mouse, suffer from undue tension in their shoulder? I call it the mouse arm syndrome. Why? Because by and large, they type on a keyboard that's on a center line, and the mouse is off to the side on the mouse pad that is beside the keyboard, which means it's not on the center line. And if you do these movements, seems like very benign, simple movements for a few hours, or maybe for many hours a day, that shoulder is not going to be happy. It's actually going to feel like, wow, my arm is not working properly, it's getting numb, it's getting stiff, and eventually people develop carpal tunnel syndrome. Why? One of the reasons is because the arm is out of their functional spectrum of where things actually work best. We call this the dynamic alignment of the body with the center line, or a certain part of the body that we want to use for a particular purpose. For example, if I'm using a hand to hammer a nail with a hammer, the hand would need to be on the center line. Where the other hand is, it's less relevant. Maybe holding that nail and then both of them are more or less on the center line. If they're off center line, the fingers are going to get hammered instead of the nail. For example, driving a car. Imagine how many more car accidents we would have if the steering wheel was just a few millimeters or a centimeter off center line. Driving like this would be exceedingly messy. Imagine riding a bicycle with a steering bar off center line. It just wouldn't work. You would fall off the bicycle in no time. It literally would make it impossible to function. I've worked with many athletes, some of them world-class athletes, some of them world champions. One of my old coaching clients who was a champion in ice skating came to one of my sessions kind of distressed, and I asked her, what's going on? And she said, one of the pirouettes that I've been practicing with my partner has been really challenging and I don't know what to do about it. And I was like, you're a world expert in ice skating. I am not even an ice skater. I know a thing or two about the general principles of body awareness and how to use it in various sports, but you are the world expert in ice skating. And she was like, yeah, but let me just show you what I do. And so she did this beautiful pirouette in midair, landed like this, and I said, I know exactly why you're having problem with this. She was like, why? I said, because you're landing like this. Notice where your navel is pointing. It's pointing out the window. And where is your foot pointing that you're trying to land on, and you feel wobbly on that foot? It's pointing out the door. If the foot is pointing this way and your navel is pointing that way, you're spreading yourself thin. You're not stabilized. So the principle of stabilization is about alignment of that center line, not necessarily only with the upper limb, but it may also be related to the lower limb. So upper limb alignment with the center line is the principle of orientation. The lower limb is the principle of stabilization. You're on a thin blade of metal trying to stand on the slippery ice after having done this beautiful pirouette. It's going to be exceedingly challenging to do if your navel is just slightly out of alignment with that skate. Or you can bring the skate to your navel. Either way, it's all relative. It works both ways as long as there is alignment. Sure enough, she figured it out. She said, but nobody lands like this. I said, who created this routine? Well, me and Frank did. Okay. How about you fine-tune this routine so that you would be able to land with precision and gracefulness and have no wobble in your leg? And she did. Now they're twice champions of the world. So there is something to say about alignment. If it works for ice skaters at the world-class level, it works for a lot of other mortal humans. And what we're learning is how to develop this level of consciousness about our body, that we become fully embodied.